Oh, okay. Should I start?
Go.
Go. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society Hybrid Seminar. Today, our seminar is on all about microgreens presented by Carolyn Dorsch and Janet Gilmore is going to be assisting. They're both master gardeners, and this is something about Carolyn Dorsch. Carolyn Dorsch joined the Master Gardener program in 2020. She is an avid gardener who enjoys all aspects of gardening. She grows vegetables, herbs, microgreens throughout most of the year. She also grows California native plants, propagating many from seed or cutting, and is a project leader at the San Carlos Native Plant Habitat Garden. She regularly gives gardening presentations and workshops for the Master Gardener program and other community organizations. Thank you, Carolyn, for coming. We look forward to your learning some more about microgreens. So this program will last for about 60 to 90 minutes. It is being recorded. There are 2 bathrooms, as I said earlier. There will be a question and answer session at the middle of the program and then at the end of the program. Zoom participants can submit questions by tapping on the chat box icon on the bottom of the screen. A few days later, you will get an email about the recording of the presentation. And if you can, you will also have evaluation forms. It would be really grateful if you could fill it in and give it to us so that we can improve our seminars next time. So thank you very much, Carolyn, and we will learn something from you today.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, especially the folks here in person that braved the wintry weather that we're having, and all of you folks watching in the comfort of your home on Zoom. That's wonderful.
Ready to start the slide?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start the slides. I'd like to just say a few words though about the Master Gardener program. So Janet and I are both from the San Mateo, San Francisco County's Master Gardener program here. The program is volunteers that are trained and certified by the University of California to provide UC research-based information on home horticulture and pest management. Our goal is to help home gardeners and community organizations garden sustainably and create a healthy environment. We hold educational gardening events throughout the year. Our big spring event is called Spring Garden Market, and it's going to be held on April 13th at the San Mateo County Event Center. A little promotion for that. We will be offering thousands of tomato plants and pepper plants, eggplants, flowers, herbs, and California natives. We also have many workshops throughout the day of that Spring Garden Market. So we certainly invite people to come on April 13th. And for the folks that are here, there's a QR code on the display table. You can get a link to our website and get more information there. We also have a monthly newsletter, and there'll be a link in the presentation, and we just send out one message a month. We don't inundate people with messages, but if you get our monthly newsletter at the beginning of each month, you'll find out all about the events that we're offering throughout San Mateo and San Francisco counties. So welcome you to sign up for that. Let's see, a few housekeeping rules. We want to make sure everybody that's here has their cell phones on silent if you can. And as Francesca mentioned, we are going to have questions available to ask midway through the presentation. When I kind of get through the nuts and bolts, then we'll take a pause. And if you have questions in person, just you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. And if you have a question through the Zoom, we'll just run it through the chat, and Kevin will let me know what the question is. And then we'll also have questions at the very end. So does that make sense for everybody? Okay, well, the first question I'm just going to ask, I don't have a Zoom poll for people, but the people here that are here, how many of you have grown microgreens? Go ahead and raise your hand. Higher, I can't see you. Okay, one person, and one person kind of went like that. So, okay, well, that's fantastic. So you're all going to learn a lot about growing microgreens. And for the person that has grown microgreens, you can let me know if tell me if I'm doing it right, or share your experiences. So, okay, very good. Right. I get to control the slides here. Okay, so today's program, what are microgreens? We actually have a little discussion about them just to make sure we're all on the same page. Why grow them? And then I'll talk about easy to grow varieties. I'm kind of a, I don't know, lazy gardener. I like to do things that are easy, especially something new, a new project. Let's start with the easy things, and we can always work our way up to more challenging things. But I like to kind of tried and true that, people try it out, they'll probably have success with, and then over time, they can kind of build up their repertoire, so to speak. So I'm going to talk about the easy to grow ones, but also invite you to do the more medium or even the more challenging microgreens if you want to go that way. Getting started, that's the goal, the nuts and bolts. How do we get started? What supplies do we need? And then the step-by-step instructions. And then I'll take that break I talked about for any questions. And then, well, what do you do with microgreens, right? So let's talk about that, and I'll have recipes, ideas at least. And then, I hate to say it, but sometimes there's problems, so we will talk about problems as well. So I'll probably do the problems before I do the recipes, get those all out of the way, and then we'll have fun looking at nice food products, okay? Okay, so as I said at the beginning, we are going to talk about what are microgreens. So they really come in three categories. I think about it. You've got sprouts, microgreens, and baby greens, right? So sprouts are Marie, who happens to be here, just happened to bring her some of her sprout starting kits. So she brought this, and you often grow sprouts like in a mason jar with mesh on the top so you can get air circulation. So sprouts are normally grown in a little bit of moisture, but an environment that doesn't have any soil. Sprouts are normally harvested as germinated seeds, so you don't really get the leaves that you see here on these plants. They're more like crunchy. They're always crunchy because they're chomping on the seeds. They're often open, and what does grow is really opaque because it's not exposed to sunlight. So they're kind of pale, like you think of like was it bamboo shoots or things like that. Microgreens, on the other hand, are normally grown in some sort of medium. I like to grow them in soil, but they can also, you can actually even grow them on a paper towel, and I'll talk about that, but they're normally grown in something. They're more like traditional planting a seed, and they will form roots, they will form leaves, and we want them to get to the green stage, so we have to expose them to light at some point. Baby greens, on the other hand, are really just microgreens that have just kept growing, right? And so they're going to be a little bit older, a little bit longer. They're often used in seed and lettuce mixes, like mesclun lettuce mixes. Those are often microgreens. They might be pretty small plants, and they just harvest the leaves individually. So today I'm focusing on microgreens, that kind of that sweet spot in the middle, not sprouts and baby greens. I think I have some baby greens. I'll show it a little bit later that have grown and grown and grown, and now I guess they've graduated to baby green status. There was a concern in the last 20 years or so about sprouts and having some problems with fungus and disease. And I know when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, I don't want sprouts anymore. I don't want to eat sprouts. The thing is, because they're in this environment, really closed environment, it does need air circulation. It's a little bit harder to manage, so that you don't want them to dry out, but you also don't want them to get so soggy that they get moldy. And so it's when they get moldy and have problems that's when sprouts are a problem. It's subsequently been found there was a study done, I think it was done by CSU, Food Science and Nutrition, that either sprouts, microgreens, or baby greens can have problems. If you get mold in them, then you're going to have problems. So I would say one is not better than the other. But to me, I think it's easier to grow microgreens. You don't have to be quite as careful about things as you do in those jars. So anyway, that's what microgreens are. Okay. Oops. There we go. So why grow microgreens? You're all here for a reason. You want to grow them, right? The reasons I have, there's a lot of great reasons to grow them. I like that you get year-round access to fresh greens. You can grow them any time of the year. Unlike when you want to grow zucchini or tomatoes, right? You can only grow them a certain time of the year. Or if you have a fruit tree, you can only have apples there in the fall. But these I can plant any time of the year. So that's a good reason. They're easy to grow, as I will demonstrate. They don't take up a lot of room. You can have something as small as a single container, and you can have a little garden right here. Lots of different flavors. We'll talk about that in the second session. they're really fresh and nutritious. There was a study done by the NIH where they took broccoli microgreens and a mature broccoli plants, and they compared them for nutrition, and the microgreens actually had more nutrition, by weight compared to a mature broccoli plant. Yeah, that's 2017 study. It's in the references. So that's kind of cool, because as the plant grows, the density of the nutrition, gets, I guess, distributed. So, pound for pound, there's more packed into a microgreen. Well, I love that it's fresh and nutritious. It's nothing's gonna be fresher than going into your own garden and picking something and cooking or putting it on a dish, and boom, you've got fresh food. Never gonna be fresher. And then of course, you're gonna save money. If you do want microgreens, they do sell them in the stores, but I mean, gosh, they're really expensive, and this isn't the most inexpensive thing to do. Seeds cost money. Seeds are really expensive, actually. When you think about a seed, right? A seed had to come from a plant that fully grew and then was harvested, dried, and then distributed. There's a lot of time and energy put into getting a seed in your hand, and a lot can go wrong, as we know, as gardeners, before anything even goes to seeds. So seeds are expensive, and I understand that. But I was, depending on how many seeds you buy, if you buy them in bulk or even a little bit from microgreens, it's at least 50% cheaper to grow your own than to buy them at a, Draeger's or Whole Foods or a store that might have them. And then of course, they're not going to be fresh like the ones right on your kitchen counter that you can just pick, So, and the availability, there's tons and tons of varieties of microgreen seeds you can get. You go down to the grocery store, what are they going to have? So saves money. And then, well, I like kind of an environmental point of view. There's really no packaging, no transportation. I don't have to bring home a plastic container from the store and, do all that. So, in a sense, I think that's important to consider. And then I have fun, I mean, this is totally fun. This is a great project for kids. People that don't even have a garden, oh, they wish they had a garden. Well, you can do this, microgreens, and you can have, 3 or 4 of these going at once, and, you're gardening. So, and you're gardening in the winter time. So I think it's great. Okay, sorry. So as I said, there are lots of things you can grow, and this is not a complete list, but this is what you will most commonly find when you go out looking for microgreens. So the easiest greens, as you can see, I've grown almost all. The only thing I haven't grown is corn. The other thing I haven't grown is corn on this list, but I've done everything else, and it definitely is easy. Now, the more challenging in the middle, certainly you can grow them, but there may be some tips or tricks about growing them. So, keep that in mind. And then the very slow growing is the last column, because sometimes you get frustrated. You planted the seeds and nothing's happening, right? So it's good to know, oh, you're trying to grow basil from seed, basil microgreens, which wouldn't that be fabulous to have fresh basil in the middle of winter? You can do it, but it's going to just take time. So be patient, and you might want the soil to be a little bit warmer. And so there's some, nuances on some of these more challenging or slow growing ones, but it is possible.
Carolyn, can I just interject that you'll be getting a copy of the recording? I know some people are taking pictures. In a day or two, you'll get a copy of the whole presentation with the slides. So
great. And so the Arboretum was just saying to folks on Zoom that the recording this is being recorded, as you knew when you came in, and it's going to be on the Arboretum website, I believe, too. Yeah, so it will be available, and the slides will be, you'll see the slides. So yeah, you don't have to be taking notes. This slide, especially this one, this is a really good one to have. Easy to grow varieties, you can get that later. A couple things on peas. I just wanted to point out, the peas on the easiest column says not sweet peas, right? So sweet peas is a different species of pea, and it's an ornamental with really beautiful smelling flowers, but it's completely poisonous. So yes. So you want the peas that like the form pea pod, the ones that are the edible peas. Let me just put it that way. They're different species. And then also the black oil sunflowers on the bottom of the easiest, which I didn't bring today, but that's one of my favorites to grow. Black oil sunflower is not the same thing as black seed oil. So just print out this list or make a copy of this list when you get a chance. And so the black oil sunflowers but when you're getting seeds for microgreens, they will, they'll be edible. A couple of things I wanted to point out on this list, you'll notice a lot of these are cool season crops, right? The mustards, pak choi, peas, the kale, arugula, broccoli, cabbage. So much of this is cool season crops, and most of the cool season crops we eat as leafy greens. So anything that we eat as a leafy green, we can eat as a microgreen. But there's other things that we might eat as like peas. We normally eat peas as peas themselves, right? So that's the fruit. So that also you can eat as a microgreen, but not everything you grow in your vegetable garden can you eat as a microgreen, like tomatoes. Don't eat your tomatoes seedlings, okay? You can eat your tomatoes when you get a nice ripe tomato on the vine, but they're poisonous as, eating the leaves. So make sure if you're gonna, make sure you understand if it's edible in leaf form, because not all vegetables and herbs are going to be edible in leaf form. You have to make sure about that. But as long as it is something you normally harvest or eat in leaf form, you can eat it as a microgreen. Okay. So getting started, we're going to go over supplies, seeds, what do plants need, growing conditions, and then we'll do step by step. So supplies, please get there. Oh, there we go. So obviously we're going to need containers, and it really can be anything. You do not have to go out and spend a bunch of money buying special microgreen containers. You certainly can, but I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite containers. And these are mushroom. I get a pound of mushrooms from big box store, right? And I love these containers. They're great. And I just make sure that you have to have drainage holes in them, because like any plant, it's going to need drainage. So I put drainage holes in these in the bottom, and then I plant them out. Soil. So the soil is, you don't have to grow in soil, but I prefer to grow in soil. And I want something organic because it's food, I'm going to be putting it in my body. So I want to start with some organic soil, but a potting soil with some compost added. Some of the seed products like kelp or seaweed included in the soil mix is recommended. So just a nice, good quality soil mix. And then we're seeds, and we'll talk a little bit more about the seeds. Watering can, I got it here, sorry. So just a little, I like this little watering can, and it's actually got a little nozzle on it. So just a small watering can, because these are small plants. Paper towels or cheesecloth might be handy. I'll show you where. Plastic lids. Again, I'm not going out and buying anything fancy. This was something at the bakery section that I bought, and the little lid fit over this very nicely when I had just planted it. So, different things like that. Try them out. And you're going to need scissors, good old scissors, but nice sharp scissors. These are really good. I like kind of small scissors like this. They work out very nicely. And then optional stuff, a fan if it needs to get air circulation. Grow lights, let's say you're growing them indoors and you really don't have access to sunlight, the 6 hours a day that these are going to want once they germinate. Plant labels, I like to put labels in all my plants, and I write the date on them when I started them. pH meter, that's for measuring acidity or alkalinity in water or soil. I'll discuss it very briefly, but that's something that some people have. A heat mat. Oh, Janet, my assistant is here. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Janet. So this is a heat mat. It's got instructions on one side. They're kind of cool, and it just plugs in, right? And it's just great for starting seeds. Yeah, thanks, Janet. You don't have to have it, and I'll show you. I did 2 sets of plantings here, one with the heat mat and one without, started at different times, but it is a way to kind of jumpstart germination to have a heat mat, and they really low energy usage. And soil press, and I don't have one, I didn't even bring one, but it's a way to kind of tamp down your soil, and I'll talk a little bit about it, but it's, like I say, it's really optional. Out of this optional list, the only thing I have is the heat mat and plant labels. I just don't have the other stuff, so you don't need it all. Okay, seeds. So seeds are really, seeds and soil, those are your 2 most important ingredients in this, right? So seeds specific for microgreens. And now what's special about microgreen seeds is they're going to have a higher germination rate and they're going to have a more even germination. So these have been specifically grown so that they all germinate at the same time and they all grow about the same, because the last thing you want is to have like some are small and some are big. They're not all germinated at once. It makes it very inefficient to try to harvest. So these are a little, so I have, while I'm growing peas here, these were microgreen peas seeds versus just the common garden variety edible peas that I would get. They both would probably work, the other kind, but the microgreen ones have been sort of programmed to just grow to become microgreens. They are all going to be organic and untreated as well, because you're going to be eating these a few weeks after they germinate. So they don't have, they're non-GMO, all the microgreens when you see them out in the market. Now, I recommend, let's see, what else do I have to say about them? Oh yeah, sometimes the seeds can come with a coating, like an antimicrobial or fungicide on seeds. And that's again why you want microgreen seeds, because they're not going to come with any kind of coating like that. If you were going to grow the plants in your garden for take 3 months, maybe there'd be some antimicrobial thing to help them along, putting them in your garden. But you're going to be growing these under controlled conditions, and you don't need, you won't need that. Yeah. Okay. And then I would recommend buying small amounts at first, because some things I like peas, I'm going to just get big box of pea seeds. But I would recommend start with a small package, see how well it goes for you, see if you like the flavor, and if you do, then go up to a bigger package. They can be pretty expensive. A small package can be like $4, $5, just enough for really one or two of these little trays. But you can also buy it by the quarter pound, half a pound, a full pound. So things I really like, I will buy by a large amount. Like here's this is a bag. This is actually a gift superfood mix. So it's got a lot of different seeds in it, but this is a lot, right? I mean, I don't know how many trays this can do, but it's going to do, it could probably do 30 trays. It's a lot of seeds, but this is pretty expensive. Whereas if I get a small, this isn't quite one, but you can get, really small packages and just, try out one tray and see how you like it. But seeds are going to be expensive. You get a little bit of sticker shock, but again, think back to going down to the grocery store and trying to buy microgreens. That's pretty expensive too. And then when you do buy seeds, maybe you're not ready to start them, or you just use half a package, just use your traditional methods of storing seeds, right? In a cool, dark place. And, so the air can't get into them, because you don't want bugs to get into them. And you want to maintain that germination rate that they would have. So, so just store them like you'd store any seeds properly. Don't store them in the sun. Don't store them in the kitchen where it's humid. You want it to be in a cool, dark, dry place. And the seeds can last anywhere from 2 to 4 years. It depends on what you get. And normally the seeds will, the seed labels, these are baby greens. And I'll maybe you can pass this around to the folks that are here, but there'll be some information about it. And, a lot of these seeds, you can open the whole thing. This is it flattened out. And there's a whole bunch of information. I don't know if people have noticed, but there's all this information. So really everything you need to know about growing pea shoots from this grower is all completely self-contained. So Janet, maybe just people can take a look at that. Thank you. And then saving your own seeds. Can you just, seeds are expensive. Maybe I'll just grow my own, right? You can try, like I have like all these are peas, that I grew in my own garden, and I saved, because I'm planning to grow these as, peas for next year, but I could grow these as microgreens. I just may not get the same results. And then the other thing about seeds, I was going through my seeds, it's kind of that time of year. What do I need for this year? So I've got some 2019 seeds for peas. I've got some 2022s. I even have a 2017. Well, if I grow that for my garden and then it doesn't turn out, I'm going to be really disappointed, and it might take me a month to figure it out, and I'm going to be a month behind. But I'm going to save these for microgreens. I don't have much to lose other than a little bit of dirt and time. So, it's something to think about. If you have older seeds, they may not get the great germination, but they may get one more shot at, producing food for you before you compost them. But again, make sure it's an edible plant that you can eat. All right. So what do plants need? Again, these are plants after all, right? Just reminding people, they're just a little bit smaller and shorter lived, but they're going to need sun and light. And we'll talk more about that. They'll need something to grow in. They're going to need nutrients in their own way, and they're going to need water and air. So just keep that in mind. This is gardening. It's a lot of the things that you know about gardening, they're going to apply to these. So growing conditions, once they have germinated, they're going to need natural light, just like any plant, to photosynthesize, turn nice and green. So they're going to need 6 to 8 hours a day of natural light, and artificial light 12 to 16 hours, because it just doesn't have the same intensity that sunlight would have. And if you do artificial light, you want it about 6 inches or 6 to 12 inches above the plants. And sometimes as the plants grow, you have to move the lights up a little bit. Plants are going to need water, just like all plants. And in this case, you're going to be wanting to keep it moist, and I often will mist it from the top. My mister, yeah. This is, gosh, I should have this. I didn't have this on the list too. I have to add this to my list. Yeah, you want, these are great. These little misters, right? You want to just give these guys a little squirt. That'll come in really handy. So you're going to mist them from the top. But after germination, I often will put the water in the bottom and then let it soak up the water. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Air circulation. Some of these get really dense. See how dense these are, right? And so this is almost too dense. I think I overdid it. This is a mix. This is that microgreen mix. I held up this bag. So anyway, you're going to want some air circulation. Like and all plants, air circulation is really key to keeping mold and fungus at bay. And then microgreens are going to grow best 55 to 65 degrees. A little bit warmer is okay, but below 55, it's just like your garden. It's just not, almost nothing's going to happen. So keep that in mind. So if you're growing them indoors, you can grow them indoors. So we'll start talking, kind of walk through this pretty quickly, step by step. So obviously you want to start with clean containers and make sure there's drainage holes. So you can see those 4 on the left there. Those were, just mushroom containers. I love that size. They're perfect. And you want whatever the container to be about 2.5 inches tall. Like here, I have some 4-inch pots. These are 4 inches up to here. So I really don't need that much soil. I could just grow them to a little bit lower length than this if I wanted to. So you don't need anything that tall because they don't need that much space because they're really not forming very much of a root structure. So I added a couple inches of soil, 2 to 3 inches of soil in that middle picture you can see, and then I got the watering can. I watered it all really well. I wanted the soil to be really well soaked before I put the seeds in. And you can also, on the right, it's just an example. Sometimes people will just grow them in one of those really long trays. You can grow a lot in those trays, and that one that's divided, you could grow 2 different varieties side by side. I tried that, but to me, it works better. This is just a little bit more manageable. I can move it around if it needs more light or less light. So I like for myself, I like these smaller ones. And then going on, you're going to soak the seeds overnight is recommended if it's a large seed. But smaller seeds really hardly need it. And then you're just going to put so I have the seeds soaking there. I don't know what those were. Oh, those I think were the sunflower seeds. And then you can't even see it, but on the top right, that photo is of the seeds are actually put in the medium. And then I just sort of pushed them down. That's where they have this press you can get, not really get, you can make just a piece of cardboard or something to press them down. Commercial growers will do that because they're growing those long trays and they're doing by volume. So it just makes sense that they kind of press the soil down, put the seeds in, and then they press it down again. So the seeds are making contact with the soil. But I just tap it down with my hand, and even it out. And then it's optional to cover it with soil. I prefer mostly to cover it with soil. I don't know, it feels wrong not to cover it with soil. And if the seeds are large, like the pea seeds or the sunflower seeds, that soil is going to help keep that seed moist, because the biggest danger these plants are going to have in the early stage is drying out, right? So you want the little bit of soil on top, and then it's moistened, and the seed's going to be moist. But the smaller seeds, you really don't have to. They can just be sitting sort of on top, and that's fine. But you would just want to keep it moist. And then you get a paper towel. And first time I tried the gauze, and that was just forget it. Just get a paper towel. But you wet a paper towel or gauze, and then you're gonna just lay it over the seeds. And then that's where I use that mister bottle again. Yeah, get it out and just really mist the paper towel again or the gauze. And that's just to keep it moist, and you can also water it well again. And then I like to cover it with a plastic lid. So, again, I use my little plastic like that and just put it over the, this is before there's anything in here. And that just helps keep it from drying out a little bit more. You could also put cellophane over it, or you don't have to even do anything, but just make sure that paper towel or gauze stays moist until it's ready, until it starts coming up. Yeah. Oh, and if you do wet the seeds, sometimes it's hard to disperse because they're all wet. So you can mix some sand in with it and then disperse the seeds, but it can be a little tricky. And some seeds have this kind of mucilage, like chia seeds. Once they get wet, they kind of get that little jelly stuff. Then it's really hard to spread. So things that have a mucilage like chia, arugula, some others, that you probably just want to sow directly. You don't even want to wet the seeds. I don't even wet them with peas. I would wet them for beets. Beets and chard are really hard seeds. And so even when I put them in my garden, I always put those overnight. But other than that, I wouldn't bother. So the key to microgreens is staying on top of them, and which means checking them every day. Have a little visit with your plants every day. Make sure that it's nice and moist, that paper towel. And then once the seeds emerge, you kind of peek underneath. Oh, I'm starting to see something. Then you just take that off. You don't need the paper towel anymore. And that's where having a plastic cover is really handy to have to keep the moisture in. And that's where you're really going to start using, you can either, spray from the top while they're just sprouting to moisten it. And then also make sure it gets water coming up from the bottom. And it does want to get some air. So you don't want some sort of super tight, airtight thing over it, or if you do, open it up for a little bit because it needs to get that air so you don't get mold or anything inside. So the maintenance, checking it, watering it daily, and again, it has holes in the bottom, right? So, but if you have it in a tray, you don't want it just sitting in water. So you want to water it every day, but you don't want it sitting in the water. Once it's taken up as much as it can, it'll stop, and then you'll just see water sitting there. So dump that water because you don't want that. And avoid the intense or direct sunlight. It won't need any sunlight until it germinates. But once you take that paper towel off, you can start putting it in in some light, but I wouldn't put it in direct sunlight. I'd put it in like a medium indirect light, or just not intense light. So this time of year, it's not a problem. I put my microgreens outside, it's great. But if I were doing this in the middle of the summertime, I would put it where it's getting some light, but it's not in the direct sun. And you'll know, the plants will tell you, they get all wilty. It's like, too much. So keep that in mind. And really 7 to 15 days. So all of these were done last Saturday, a week ago yesterday, right? So I would give the pea shoots a little bit more time, but these radishes are the red stem ones. They're completely ready now. The microgreen mix, yeah, it's forest, you could go for it. But my daikon radish, not, kind of sparse, there's a lot of seeds that haven't germinated, so they're struggling a little bit. So but then the plants, which I'll show a little bit later, but those are January 1st. Those were done on January 1st. I did all of these on a mat, on a heat mat, and the other ones, which we'll show to the Zoom folks a little bit later, those were all done outside, no heat at all. So there is another method. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, and it's just called the paper towel method. And I tried it. I didn't like it, but it's great because you don't need soil. You don't even need a container. You just need paper towels. And there's lots of information on the web about it, but it's sort of like the way you would do a seed germination test, right? You get a wet paper towel, you either soak the seeds or just put them on the paper towel and spray them and get them really wet. And then you're going to cover it with another wet paper towel. And it doesn't need light at that point. And I mean, it's got a towel over it, but you just keep it in a dark place. Doesn't need any light, and just keep it moist again, the top paper towel, and just check it. And once it starts to sprout, then then it needs light because you want it to turn a nice green. And in a few days, it'll turn a nice green, and you'll have microgreens through the paper towel method. I just thought there was a lot of times they were sort of flat. They didn't all pop up, and I didn't like it at all. But it is an easy method to do without even bothering with soil. So that's kind of nice. They're nice and clean. You don't have to, pull soil out from when you harvest. So there's certain advantages for it. Small seeds may be even easier because small seeds are, the small shoots that come up are harder to clean. And so these don't require hardly any cleaning because they've been in pretty much a sterile medium. But only after a few days, they're going to start kind of turning yellow and not looking too good because they have no nutrients at that point. They have the nutrient that came with the seed, but they don't have the soil medium to pick up trace nutrients. So they're just going to grow whatever they've got in that little seed. And then after that, they're going to start fading again. So those you're going to have to really keep an eye on. Has anybody tried the paper towel method? No, I don't recommend it, but you do see it. So I thought I'd better talk about it. Okay, the fun part, harvest day. So that's when, you've got these nice looking plants, like I would call this, we're ready for harvest day, this red stem radish, right? Looking very good. So you can harvest with the first seed leaf, cotyledon, or where you get the true leaves. So plants have this, let's see, does this work, the mouse, the pointer?
Top one.
Oh yeah, thank you. So cotyledon, in this picture, it's those kind of fat lower leaves that come out, and most of the plants we're growing are going to have these two leaves that come out. That's the cotyledon, and that's the leaf that was actually in the seed itself. So right now I'm looking at these radishes, and they do have, the cotyledons are here, and so I can harvest it right after the cotyledon has come. But I also like a true leaf. True leaf means I'm just going to get more volume out of it. So you might, and some plants are going to be better than others to harvest just from a simple cotyledon or wait for a true leaf. The peas, for example, I'm going to wait for a few pea leaves to come up, and then I'm going to harvest. So your true leaf is that the leaf that comes up, the leaf that comes up the top here. And sometimes, often, the true leaf does not look like that cotyledon or seed leaf. So it's hard to tell a plant by its cotyledon often, but when you see the first leaf, like, oh, okay, that's a pea, I recognize it. So make sure when you're harvesting, you want everything kind of clean. You want to have your hands nice and clean. You want to have your scissors sharp and clean, and just everything to minimize getting any pathogens or any problems. And then you're going to want to cut into the base, and I'll show a picture of that. So show some pictures. And you can possibly get more than one harvest out of some of these plants, like the peas. I can get 2 or 3 harvests out of, but other ones, the smaller ones, you just get cut it once, and that's about all you get. So you want to harvest in cool weather, not when it's the heat of the day. And if you do harvest, but you're not ready to use them, then you can go ahead and store them in the refrigerator. So here's some microgreens, some broccoli on the left, and the sunflower black oil on the right, both at day 13. They were both about ready to harvest. So harvesting is pretty simple, right? Just get those scissors and cut pretty low to the soil level, and take your time. It's the more time you take, the more careful you are, the less soil you'll get in it. And these are also pretty young plants, so they're susceptible to being bruised, and you don't want bruising. So again, just take your time and harvest away. You can see I harvested, and I have a little plate there. I put them on, and see how nice and clean they look on that plate. I did a good job, right? I didn't get the soil, but so you don't pull them out and harvest them. I mean, you could, but then you'd have all the roots and stuff, and then you have to cut that off anyway. So I think the easiest method is just to kind of give it that haircut. And if you cut something like the peas, I'm not going to cut them all the way down. I'm going to cut them above that first cotyledon, and that should enable them to continue to grow and maybe get a second whack out of it. You can try it out, see how it works for you. See if you can get a second growth out of it. If you can, it's perfectly edible, and you can have it. So I think that's a good thing. And then you may want to wash them. Let's see if I go into washing here. Yeah, so just storing them. Sometimes like they're really ready to be harvested, but you're not ready to use them, then just harvest them, but then put them in a plastic bag. At that point, you don't want to wash them yet. You only wash them when you're ready to use them. But if you need to, harvest them because for whatever reason, maybe you're going to give them to somebody, put them in a plastic bag. Make sure you might need to label and date them if you don't know, if you've got too many going on in the refrigerator or you're sharing, and then just wash them when you're ready. And I wash them, just, put them in a bowl and just mix it around. Sometimes the seed hole is, is still stuck to the leaf. So you might want to pull those seed holes off, and then the soil or dirt will go to the bottom, but you just want to have nice clean seeds, a clean harvest. Okay, common problems, and then after this, be ready for questions. So there are problems. Things do happen. And these are the most common ones. Well, the seeds don't germinate, right? Voila, right? Seeds are not germinating too greatly in this one. And there's lots of reasons. The seeds could be too old. This is like any gardening, right? Why did my plant not germinate? Seeds don't germinate. Maybe these were treated to some sort of suppression thing, so that could cause a problem. These maybe the seeds are planted too deeply, just like any garden thing. So either just a very light layer of soil on top, or no soil on top is best for these guys. But if you really push it down in there, it may not have enough energy in that seed to come all the way back up. Drying out after planting, that's a big deal here because we're planting them so shallowly or on top. So that's probably the number one problem, is either the seeds are old or they dried out. And then the temperature is too cold. So I tried to grow them on January 1st, in the wintertime. I put them outside in a little mini greenhouse, but it's pretty much ambient temperature, and they were slow to germinate, to say the least. Okay, germination is uneven. Sometimes some germinate and some don't. Again, this is my problem child, my daikon radish problem child. It's like there's seeds in there, but they're not all coming up, or they're just slow. Well, there's lots of different reasons. I have this mixed seeds, and they are going to grow at different rates. Now, ideally, when you buy a product from a microgreen grower, they're going to put in seeds that have the same habit and will grow at the same time, so I trust that's what they do. They sell microgreen seeds. So those mixes, you should be able to rely on that they're all going to grow at the same rate. But hey, I'm going to mix all my seeds together and make a nice mix, you might run into difficulties. So something to keep in mind. Maybe I just didn't sow them evenly, and so, some were too deep, some weren't, some were on top of each other. There's, the way I planted them might have caused them to germinate unevenly. And then the tray itself, once they've sprouted and I've got them exposed to light, maybe 6 to 8 hours of light, but maybe I'm only getting 6 hours of a long tray. Maybe the tray is not getting even in distribution of light. And actually, because I put these outside in that little mini greenhouse every morning, I go check them. I always turn them. I keep turning them. Because especially the peas, they grow so tall, but I want them to keep a nice even rate. So that's not a germination issue so much as just a growing issue. If it grows kind of unevenly, it could be because of the light. And then other seedling problems, drying out, again, they're not enough water or they got too much sun, right? And one or the other, probably. Sometimes you'll see, gee, they turned yellow on me. What happened? Well, it could be your soil was not, it was a poor quality soil. And that's where make sure you start with fresh soil, and having some of those seed products like kelp and seaweed in the soil mix is recommended. Also the pH, now it could be off. The pH I was talking about is whether the acidity or alkalinity of the soil. And the pH recommended for most microgreens is about 6.5, which is just a little bit to the left of the scale of acid or base. But sometimes people's water systems maybe have too much base or something in it. So if you have a problem with your tap water, you might want to have to use filtered water. But I've never had I don't think a pH problem per se on anything with my tap water. But if you have specific issues where you are, then that might be something to consider, that the pH could be off. And then sometimes the seedlings get really leggy. And of course, that's a light issue in most instances. Let's see, what other problems? I think the last one here, fungus or rot, right? That can definitely be a problem with anything you grow. Any seeds that you might start, that's an issue. So too much water can definitely cause fungus or mold or rotting, because that's the environment it likes, a nice, moist, wet environment. Not enough light, again, that also, the sunshine will really help keep that at bay as a problem. poor air circulation. So that is, that's one of the big issues with getting fungus and mold. And that's where, like, I worry a little bit about this, you know, it's so dense. This is the microgreens. I just put way too many seeds in here, but I want it to be lush. But I have to be a little concerned, you know, if there could be mold in here. So I want to harvest this pretty early. And I don't have a fan, as I mentioned, but just going like that and just sort of fluffing it up, right? Just getting some air in there and just checking it. That's going to go a long ways, and making sure it gets that adequate light. But this is a little too dense, I think. So I've never had a fungus or mold issue yet with my growing microgreens, so knock on wood. And then overhead watering, that just can also, what happens is, like, if I overhead watered with this, these would probably all fall down. They'd all go sideways. And then if I don't fluff them back up, then they were kind of could be on top of each other, and then they're wet, and then that can kind of get slimy, and then you can get moldy. And so that's a reason to water from underneath. Now, interestingly, when you look at this photograph, I said, I've never had mold or rot before, but wait a second, look at that white stuff I got going there, right? Those are actually part of the root development. And so when they first germinate, and then you're going to see this white, that, oh my gosh, I got something growing that's not right. And this plant here, because these are just still getting started, even though I planted them 8 days ago, you can actually see, you guys can see, you probably can't see, well, you can see the photo there, but you folks that are here, you can check later. I actually have that white fuzzy stuff that looks a lot like mold or fungus. I mean, if I didn't know better, I would think I had a problem. But so that's okay. That early fuzz that you get is just part of the root development and nothing to be concerned about, and it will go away. Okay, stopping for questions. Any questions in the room first, and then yes, Marie.
That white fuzzy stuff, how do you distinguish if it's good or bad? Like, I just don't know.
Well, it's comes, so the question she asked is the white fuzzy stuff, how do you distinguish it from good or bad? And I know because of the timing of it. I just planted these seeds. They just germinated, and I'm not letting them sit in water, you know, this isn't dripping with moisture. So I know I'm growing them kind of properly, it seems to me, getting air circulation, all of that. But it's right around the base of the seedling. And I had to learn that that's what it is. So I know it's early stage. It's just after it germinated. I seem to be doing everything right that I know of. So and then it'll go away. You know, normally a fungus or mold will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it does go away. And I haven't seen it on everything, but these are on the radish seeds, I've definitely seen it. So you don't see it on, so if you don't have it, if you don't have this white fuzzy stuff when your seeds germinate, that's okay. Okay. But when you do have it, yeah. Any other questions in here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so the cilantro seeds, they're the big brown ones, right?
Yes.
So how would you sow that? Because I've seen people on YouTube and all say you need to crack it, or you have to rub it on sandpaper and do that.
Okay.
How do you sow that?
So the question was about cilantro seeds. How would you sow the cilantro seeds? And some places will recommend scarification, where you kind of rub sandpaper or something to sort of break that seed coat. You know, it's a pretty large seed, and it's a hard seed. So what you can do is soak them. I'd soak them overnight and then plant them and see how that goes. Now, if none of them germinate and you know they're fresh and everything about them, the quality is good, then maybe you need to do something else and scarify them. One of the books I have, I can show you, has topics for each type of plant that you would grow. And so there might be a nuance specific to cilantro seeds. But I think in general, that would be a good one that you would want to soak overnight. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a planter, and I just scattered lettuce mixed seeds into it. So now there's a whole lot coming out, and I probably need to thin it. Things that I thin out are those microgreens. Can I keep them?
Yeah. So her question was, she has a planter, and she sowed a bunch of lettuce seeds in her planter, and they've all come up, which is fantastic. And she wants to know if she can thin it, and are those microgreens? Yeah, you can definitely thin it, and depending on the length of them, they might be microgreens or baby greens, right? You know, just semantics. But Yeah, all those baby lettuce leaves are definitely something you can eat because you eat lettuce as a leafy green, so you can eat the smaller plants as a leafy green. So in that case, you can either pull it out or you can just cut it at its base. And if you cut it at its base, it might resprout actually. So if you really want to thin it, you might just literally pull them out and then just cut the roots off and clean them, and then you've got nice microgreens. Yeah. And you had a question?
Do you recommend using like peat moss as the medium to cover the seeds before they germinate, or is it a little too acidic? Does it hold the water better?
Right. So she asked the question about whether I recommend using peat moss to cover the seeds before they germinate. No, I don't recommend it. You don't really need it, first of all. And with peat moss, it does stay it can retain moisture, but it takes a bit to get it fully hydrated, and it might be a little too heavy. And so I really just think you don't need it. Just a very light layer of soil on top, or even just a wet paper towel is all you need. So yeah, I just figured the less you have to go out and get, the better. But I wouldn't even entertain using peat moss. I just wouldn't do it. Don't think you need it. And yeah, another question.
So with these big trays, when you harvest it, you cut it off,
Mhm.
do they regrow at all, or do you have to throw the whole medium away and start over?
Great question. So she asked, with these trays, once I've harvested it once, will they regrow, or do you just have to throw it all out and kind of start all over again? And about half of these will regrow, and half I would say would not. It just depends on the different plant, and part of it is kind of experimentation. Once you've harvested it, you don't need to get rid of it right away. So see what happens. And some of it will come up. I think like even these radishes, probably some of them will come up, but they won't all come up. It won't be as lush. But once you're done harvesting and you're not going to get any more out of it, then the question is, well, what do you do with this? This can all be put in your compost. I would compost it. I wouldn't try to reuse it. First of all, you cut it, at soil level, so it's going to have all the root structure. So just mix it in with the compost. You could even mix it in with your vegetable garden or something. Just work it back in, and but you always you want to start with fresh soil, but you can use part of it, fresh soil, but use some compost as well. And so bring it back after it's composted, some of it, work it in your soil. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Do we have any questions online, Kevin?
There are two.
Okay.
One is, where do you buy seeds and supplies?
I will have resources at the end, so we'll talk about that.
And what happens to the plants after you harvest? Do they grow in, or
She just asked that. So yeah, so we just answered that question about whether they grow again or not. Some will and just some won't.
One question, you mentioned natural light and artificial light. Do you use both so that the plants are exposed like 12, 15 hours a day, or is it one or the other?
Right. So the question is about lighting. Do you use both artificial and natural? And no, you pick one or the other. So it's what do you have where you live or where you're going to be growing them. So I have not used the artificial light because I have pretty good light sources here and there in the garden or in the house. You can certainly grow these in the house. A nice sunny window, and just keep an eye on them. Wherever you grow them, make sure it's a place that you're going to visit on a regular basis. Like if you have a back room that's got great sun, but it's in the back room that you maybe forget about for a week, that would be bad, right? So you want to grow them in the kitchen, the family room, or right outside the patio. Not if you've got a big garden, don't grow it, all the way across where you can't. You want to be able to see these every day, so you keep an eye on them. So I fortunately have some natural light places, but if you don't have natural light, then yeah, then you would use artificial light and grow it as we discussed. Anything else?
The big list of questions that maybe we'll get to.
Okay, we'll look at the end.
There's
Yeah.
10 questions.
Okay, 10 questions. Wow, somebody's really paying attention and taking notes. I love it. Okay, so should we go back to the slideshow? Water here. Okay. You guys all ready to start growing microgreens?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, bunch of nodding heads, okay. So then, a lot of people say, yeah, there we go. What are you gonna do with microgreens other than making smoothies, right? And it really is, the limits are only the limits of your imagination of what you can do with microgreens, in my opinion. So smoothies, salads, egg dishes, stir fries, soups, sauces and dressings and garnishes. So, here's just some real simple thoughts and simple ideas on it. Okay. So I'm just some pretty pictures. I figured, we could start thinking about food, getting hungry. I mean, to me, if I don't have microgreens on something I cook, I'm mad, and I'm really mad when I have nothing growing, it just goes great on everything. Yesterday I made avocado toast, right, with red onions and microgreens. So actually, I'm dying to dig into these guys, but I thought, no, they're not harvested. But and soups, I can't, you think of soups as a wonderful, hearty winter thing to have. It makes you feel so good. But a little pop of fresh microgreens on top, getting something fresh on your food in the wintertime in particular is just magical. And those sunflower seed microgreens are just crunchy and they're so great in soup. And I don't have it. I'm out of seeds of those, so I've got to get some because and they grow really quickly and they're beautiful. The salads and garnishes. I mean, scrambled eggs. You got to put something on your scrambled eggs. I think of chives as a microgreen. Right? And chives and eggs are just fantastic. But really, anything's good. These radishes, lots of microgreen mustards and radishes have that kind of little pop of heat, and it just really amps up the whatever the dish is. And then, getting fancy restaurants, right? They always serve, nice things on a bed of microgreens and a little bit on top. Well, you can do that too. It's just amazing how great you can make a dish look by just putting microgreens on it. So some broiled cod with a little bed of microgreens. I forget, they were just two different kinds, one on the bottom and then I think radishes on top, and then some rosemary chicken with a bed of microgreens as well. So just, really simple. And then I thought this was pretty neat. I think Shannon, is that over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pass it around actually, yeah, because it's in the picture here, but they actually sell microgreen, like a whole mix of microgreens that are, kind of thematic. So this is called Italian Amaro blend. And look at that. I think it's got 3 different microgreens, Italian chicory, curly endive, and escarole. Grow those, make pizza, put them on top, right? So this would just be a great thing for kids, grow, we have them often in the summer gardens to grow the big toppings for pizzas, like growing tomatoes and peppers and onions. Well, you can also grow microgreens as well. So you got that kind of plain, ordinary pizza on the left, but then you got your microgreens. You have to get them grown, not just the seeds. And now you got this beautiful looking pizza with greens and stuff on top. So one of the books I have that I'll talk a little bit more about pretty soon here, but this is the book Microgreens, and you'll see it in a second. And I tabbed it here for the folks that are here. I think I did. Yeah, it has microgreen mixes of different microgreens that you can grow. And I would recommend on these mixes to grow them individually and then harvest them at the same time. But they recommend which ones have nice Asian flavorings, and the pak choi amaranth and a radish, or the spicy spring mix with his peas, spicy spring pea mix, peas, endives, and radishes, and then just spicy mixes. So it gives me ideas on different microgreens I can grow and combine together when I'm cooking with them. But there's quite a few commercial mixes like that Italian one that I'm passing around. I got those at local nursery. That's those microgreen seeds, and I didn't know they had such things, so that's kind of cool. And then, okay, I was at the pet store, and lo and behold, there's so who are you growing microgreens for, right? Well, there's a whole market out there. I just love this display at the pet store. Kitty, so you've seen those kitty greens and stuff. So apparently, it's not just for humans, Anyway, I just thought this was this charming Rosie's kitty microgreens. And actually this thing, I don't know if you can't read the fine print, but it says about it, good for cats, dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, birds, and reptiles, wholesome, nutritious, and organic. So, and they say it provides vitamins, minerals, fiber, and live enzymes. Those are the kitty greens. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty cute. I don't even have a cat right now, but I don't, but I just thought that was just way too cute. Okay, so yeah, recap. Get to know your plants, and in this book, I guess I should talk about it at the very end, but say it again. This book and a lot of these books specific on microgreens will have whole sections on specific plants. So if someone was wanting to grow arugula, there's a section right here on arugula, and it will tell you the challenges of growing it, when to expect germination, should you soak the seeds or not, so really get to know the information about your plants. The more you know, probably the more success you're going to have. And then working with your plants, get to know them, see how they're growing. I can see which things grow fast and which don't. So, get familiar with your plants. That's always true of all gardening, right? And remember what plants need. These are plants after all, so they're going to need what all other plants need: sun or light, water, air, and soil. They don't really need fertilizer because they're only grown for a few weeks. And so they really have everything they need either in the seed or that little bit that they're going to pick up in the soil. Obviously, if we were growing plants for several months, we would probably, in a container like this, we'd have to add fertilizer or some nutrients, but they'll get enough out of that soil and what's already packed into that little seed package. Most success is going to be with your microgreen seeds, but like I'm going to try out my old pea seeds or seeds that I've grown and see if it works. But the microgreen ones, again, are really oriented to growing consistently, high germination rate. So that if you want success, I would start with something that's made for growing microgreens. And then plant trays every week. So you want a constant supply. That's called succession growing, right? Like your lettuces that you're growing. You did a beautiful planter of lettuces. You might in a month, because lettuce is kind of a cool season plant to grow outdoors, but you might in a month want to start some more because, catch the late winter, early spring. So the first ones you have now, when they harvest, you're still going to want lettuce, right? So certain plants kind of lend themselves to succession growing, and certainly microgreens. Like I said, I cannot stand not having any. You're cooking something and you're like, oh, this would be great if I only had, and you don't have it. So every week or two, even just getting one or two of these, good idea. And then please have fun. I think it's fantastic. It's a way to garden in the wintertime. I mean, your failure growing this to be a radish shoot is going to be a lot less than trying to actually get a radish, right? Has anybody ever grown radishes and you grow them and then they never form? That's so frustrating. But in 2 or 3 weeks, you're gonna be successful. So I just love it. I think that might. Okay. Someone asked about seed sources. So here's a few. There's certainly more out there. A lot of the big seed companies, they will have a section now that even might be a separate section that says microgreens, vegetables, herbs, flowers, microgreens. So go to the microgreen section if they have it. Johnny's does, High Mowing Organics does, True Leaf is a really good one, Rainbow Heirloom. I used to get a lot of my Japanese, I like growing Japanese herbs and vegetables from Kitazawa Seed Company, which was based in Oakland. They were bought out last year or the year before by True Leaf. They might still go under that name, Kitazawa, but basically True Leaf has a lot of those Asian herbs and greens that I used to love to get from Kitazawa. So there's quite a few, this is kind of becoming a big thing. People like doing it, so you're going to see a lot more of it. But the local nurseries, I've been to, several in the area, and you go to the seed section, and some will have more than others. And if they don't, say, hey, do you guys sell microgreens, right? If there's something I want that's not too weird, I'll often ask them because I think, just ask. And they get a few people coming, people have been asking about microgreen seeds, or sometimes you'll see them, but they'll have free packages, and there's so many out there that, just ask. And, that it doesn't hurt, because sometimes they're hard to find. There's so many, the seed sections at nurseries can be so big now, but keep an eye out. But I found them locally really easily, so you don't necessarily have to do mail order. Okay, so references at last. Books. I mean, I love books. Big book fan, but I think if you're going to really get into growing microgreens, it's really handy to have a reference book that you can just keep coming back to over and over again. So this book here on the left, so I went to the library and I checked out like 5 books on microgreens. That was a while ago, so they're all still there now. But, you know, about a couple of years ago, when I really wanted to get into this and kind of study it, I just went to the library first, you know, and San Mateo County Library System, you can order a book from anywhere and they'll deliver it to your whatever library you want to pick it up. So I live in Menlo Park, so they don't have all the microgreen books in Menlo Park, but you know, I just say, I request this, request that. They all showed up. I went through them all. The two I really liked were this one here, and this is the one I ended up buying because I just love it, and I pull it out every single time. And then this one, it just you know, the cooking one, it says cooking, but it's also they tell you how to grow microgreens, give you a little background. They give you a lot of information, and then recipes and ideas. So, you know, my recommendation is borrow a book somewhere and see if one really calls to you and you think you really want to get into it. You know, investing in one book on microgreens, we probably all, for gardeners, we probably have a shelf of gardening books, but it's just one more book on microgreens. And now some general garden books will have a section on microgreens. You know, I was looking at Golden Gate Gardening by Pam Pierce just the other day. I think they have something on microgreens. Well, they do, but it's 2/3 of one page. You know, I mean, that's, you know, they mention it, but it's not really in there. But I have seen other general books on gardening and they may have a chapter on microgreens. So it doesn't have to be specifically. Okay, I'm almost done here. These were some references. I actually have a handout here that I borrowed from the Sonoma County Master Gardeners about growing microgreens, a really nice sheet that they have. If you Google, do a search for microgreens and master gardeners, there's a couple groups that have handouts, and probably San Mateo County we're talking about, maybe we'll have one on our website as well. And then I think I mentioned about that broccoli microgreens, and also about the safety of microgreens. There's a nice study in the bottom there from the University of Nevada in Reno on the product safety of microgreens. So recommend people take a look at that. They're not very lengthy. And then just acknowledgement again. Thank you all. Thank you for the Arboretum for organizing this. I want to thank the Society's Sue Carter, Kevin Wilkinson, Arcana, and Francesca. Thank you for putting this all together and getting it all working. And I think, oh yeah, a little bit more, Master Gardener. If you do want to get in touch with us, these are the QR codes that I mentioned that we have. We have one for the monthly newsletter on the left. And we also, if you want to make a donation to our wonderful organization, that's on the right. So you can click that QR code. And I also have a hard copy of the QR code here for the folks that are here. Yeah. And finally, we do have a helpline. Is anybody here and used our helpline? Do you know about the helpline? Okay, all right. So this is true for everybody that's watching, as well as the folks that are here. So our Master Gardeners for San Mateo, San Francisco County, we have a helpline, and you can ask any gardening question to us. And so here's the information on how to read. You can call, but the best thing is really just send us an email by going to our website, and you click on, I think the bottom right is where our helpline is. You'll find it on the homepage of our website, the helpline, and just click there, and then there's a format that will come up to put in your gardening question. And we're really good at answering questions, and just as much detail you can give us. Is it growing in a container, growing in the ground, where you live, is, you know, just more, and pictures if it's a problem. The more information you give us, the more it will be able to get to you, answer your question in a pretty quick manner. So it's a wonderful resource, free to the community. So, and really, we get questions on everything. So please feel free to avail yourself of the helpline. And we're also here, we have a plant clinic. I think the first Sunday of every month, you'll see it in the Arboretum's newsletter. They'll have information about that. But we're here from March through November, the first Sunday of each month, except April, we're on the 14th. But we're also here in person, Master Gardeners, from noon to 3. Okay, got through it all. So any final questions before Francesca has the final announcement? Any questions here? Yes, Lenny.
If I were going home and planting stuff today, would you recommend doing it inside with, like, in a window?
Right. So the question is, for someone today going home and says, hey, I want to get started with microgreens, inside or outside, in a window, how would you manage it? I would do it indoors. It's just a little, right now we're pretty cold, windy, icky weather. If it is outdoors, you'd want to be fairly, really in a protected place. but I would just go ahead and do it indoors. And yeah, and for the people that are here, I actually have a little thing for them to take home already that they can try to grow. So I'll talk about that after we finish our Zoom. Any other questions? Yes.
I didn't see watercress in your list.
Yeah, it is. It's in the book, actually. I should have put that on the list. Yeah,
Okay.
that's definitely a common microgreen to grow, and it grows really well.
Is it on the easy, medium, or hard?
Let's look at the book afterward. I think it might be on the easy though, but it might have those mucilage, the seeds that are have that mucilage. So we might not want to soak them. We might just directly sow them. But let's take a look at the book. Yeah, thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have actual farmers that do, they harvest them en masse, or do you rely on households to do the microgreen? Is it better to do like household, just do it yourself type of harvest? Or can you find a person who grows en masse so that the customers just buy it in the store?
Okay,
Which is easier?
yeah, the question was, are there people out there that like professionals that will grow them en masse and you can just go buy them from them, or is it better just to do it yourself at home, right? There definitely are, there's a whole professional business out there, and you'll see them even at farmers markets, and you'll see them in some of the specialty grocery stores, or, you know, I think kind of specialty high end. So there is a whole commercial market out there, and sometimes the books really get into almost more commercial practices than individual practices because they're growing in such large volumes. I guess it's a choice, you know, it's more convenient to maybe get them at the grocery store because they're just, you don't have to deal with the growing them, seeding them, tending to them, but you're not going to have as many choices at the grocery store. They're going to be more expensive, and they're not going to be as fresh, right? These are going to be as fresh as I cut them. So it just kind of depends, you know, if you want microgreens, you're going to be cooking and you want microgreens and you don't have any, then the grocery store might have what you want, but check it out. They're not going to have nearly as many varieties at the grocery store or even at the farmer's market, and they will have been harvested at least a day or 2, 3 days earlier probably. So it's just a balance. You can certainly do it at home, but fortunately we're lucky enough that we live in an area where they also have commercial folks out there that are growing them.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
The watercress, when I buy it at the grocery store, it seems to be growing in like a spongy thing. So if I cut the leaves, then will it grow back?
So the question was about watercress. When you buy it in the store, it grows in something kind of a spongy medium, and if you cut them, will it grow back? And I guess it might. I don't know. I've never tried it, but you know, there are a lot of things that you can buy, like like romaine lettuce, you know, nice head lettuce, and you cut it, it'll actually resprout. Now you're not going to get another huge head, but you can get several little leaves out of it, and it'll regrow. So there's actually, it might. So if it does, it would be edible. Yeah, but at that point, yeah, I don't know.
And it's not gonna have the nutrients it needs.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's gonna, yeah, for the watercress, it's gonna be, if it's really pale, you know, it's probably not gonna do too well because it doesn't have root, you know, it probably doesn't have very much of a root structure. Yeah. Any questions? Oh, the guy online with it.
Yeah.
You want to field just a few of those? There's quite a few.
What should you do if you start to grow mold? Is it harmful to consume?
I believe it is. If you get mold, I'm afraid I would not take any chances. I mean, I'm not a nutritionist or a medical professional. I would guess that it's not a good thing. And you know, if you have any doubt about the safety of anything you're eating, don't eat it. Just you know, either put it in your green waste or, you know, compost it. But I would not. I wouldn't eat it.
Probably a good idea to trash it, not
Even trash, yeah. So the recommendation someone said is just trash it. Don't even take the chance that, you know, of putting it in your own home composting. A lot of times home composting, it just doesn't reach the kind of temperatures and over a sustained period of time, it needs to kill all pathogens. So let the commercial guys do it who do get those temperatures up. Yeah.
Does the growing method affect the flavor?
I don't know. The question was about the growing method. Does it affect the flavor? I would think if you don't grow it in soil, then it might affect the flavor only because at some point it's exhausted its nutrients and there's nothing else left to pull it out. But if it's in soil, it's going to continue to have nutrients and, you know, support the plant. So I would guess soil would probably be a little bit tastier.
And how do you water from underneath?
So yeah, so the question is, how do I water from underneath? So what you would do is you have a tray. Now, this is really my lid tray, but you know, you basically, this plant, this has holes in the bottom. So I don't know if you can see them. See? You guys can see. It doesn't really show up well on the camera, but it has holes in the bottom. So I could have it, I would probably, you know, if I'm growing it in the kitchen or something, I don't want the water, once it, you know, I don't want to get the kitchen counter messy. So now I have it in a tray. I have my little watering can. So I'm just gonna water, you just put some water in here and let it sit for a while, right? Because I'm gonna let it kind of soak it up. But then after a while, I say, you know, it's probably brought up as much water as it needs to. I can feel it's kind of moist on the top. So the you know, the soil, the water has worked its way up to the soil. So at that point, if there's still water in here, I'll just lift it out, dump the water somewhere, and then just put it back in here. Now it's not sitting in water anymore. It might, a little bit will, you know, drip down. But anyway, that's how you would water anything from a tray. The tray is going to have, you want to have a little bit of a lip on the tray. If it's too shallow, like a plate, it won't hold, you know, it won't hold hardly anything and it'll spill all over. So I just don't want to sit over, I just don't want it sitting in a tray. Like if you have it outdoors right now, we're getting beautiful rainstorm. But you have it in a tray outside, it's just going to be sitting in water, you know, and that's true of a lot of your plants with trays underneath, and you might want to dump those trays because the plants are fully saturated at this point.
And then sprouts are not meant for cooking, but are other microgreens? I think you had a cookbook about that, right? You cook microgreens.
Okay, so the question was about cooking with microgreens. Yeah, I didn't really mention that, so I'm glad somebody mentioned it. Sprouts are just meant, you know, sprouts, which are the earlier versions of the plants, are really just meant for eating raw, just eating as they are. But for microgreens, you can do both. You can either cook with them or use them as sort of as a garnish. I actually will definitely throw them like in a stir fry, or you know, kind of even work them into the soup. But because they're such young, immature plants, they're going to cook in a heartbeat, right? So just like if you're cooking, I don't know, like an Asian stir fry, you might put bean sprouts in. You don't put them in at the beginning with the carrots and the onions, right? You put them in at the very end and just kind of get them 20 to 30 seconds, and that's all it's gonna take. So I will cook with them, but it's not a heavy cooking. They'll go in at the very end of the dish, and if I want to mix it in, I'll just toss it through, turn it off the stove, and they'll finish up, you know, in that dish. Same with on soups. You can either put them on the top or you can mix them in, but you're just going to mix them in as you're just about to serve it, because they're just so fragile. I mean, there's just not that much to them.
Yeah. And can you let microgreens go to seed and then get your own seeds from microgreens?
Yeah. Okay. This question is after, you know, this guy's after my own heart, or gal, whoever it is. So the question is, can you grow your own microgreen seeds from microgreen plants? I don't know. I've never tried it. I know that I'm not a commercial grower, and the commercial growers have very strict growing conditions. So remember, if you're going to get seeds, that means you're going to have flowers, right? And then the flowers are going to have to be pollinated. So then you have to start thinking about cross-pollination. Commercial seed growers, it's not a trivial thing to be a seed farmer, a farm that grows plants for seed. They have to be very cognizant of cross-pollination, and they have distances. Like if you're growing peas, there can't be any other peas within a quarter of a mile because of cross-pollination. I know personally, I'm never going to be as successful as a commercial grower who's factoring in all of these things and then growing them perfectly right and harvesting them just at the right time, because they really know how to grow plants as a seed farmer. That's what they are, seed farmers. I could probably do it, and I probably I might get some cross-pollination from my other seed peas that I'm growing at the same time, let's say. And maybe the germination rate wouldn't be as high, but it's a lot cheaper than, you know, some of these packages can be super expensive. So there's no harm in trying, but you're not going to probably have as great success, germination rate and consistency of growth as microgreens. And if you're first starting out, yeah, I just recommend start with a professional microgreen seed. And then once you start doing it, you start playing around and you're going to try different things. I still want to try this pile of old pea seeds and see what happens. You know, if I get something as beautiful as this, I'm going to say, whoa, that worked out pretty well, actually. But so start out, I would recommend, again, if you've never done it. But if you like to tinker and try things, definitely give it a shot. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much. And please give it a try. Yeah, should we bring them over? Yeah, Janet, get my friend Janet over here. So are we still on Zoom?
We're still on Zoom.
For a second? Excellent. Okay, if I may, let's see if we can just show these. Yeah, this is fine. No, we're gonna keep these side by side. Okay, so this is a bit of a mess. People are gonna, oh my goodness, but this tray here, I planted, everything here was planted on January 1st. And it was in a little greenhouse outside. I have a tiny little greenhouse against the big house, the home. And no heat mat, no nothing. And it was kind of cold and, everything was a bit slow, but January 1st. So now we're 36 days. So that's how many weeks? 5 weeks, right? This is these are all 5 weeks of growth. So we have peas. What else I got here? The purple. So these peas were started on last Saturday, okay? And I started them on a heat mat. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm a little late. So I got these going on a heat mat. These again, so this is 1 week old and these are 5 weeks old. Now you can see these, they're kind of hard to see, but these have gone these are almost beyond baby greens, right? I know pretty soon I'm gonna start seeing flowers on these guys. They're going to be a little tough. They're going to be a little crunchy. I would definitely do these in a stir fry or a soup and let them cook in just a little bit. Those peas. So this is way beyond when you should harvest them.
For those peas, do you cut out the stems or just use everything?
Use everything. Yeah. So let's see. I'm just going to break one off right here. See if I can get it. I mean, look at that. That's so. This is really much further advanced than you'd want for eating a microgreen, I think, because it'll start getting a little bit tough or whatever. I should have harvested it when it was more like that, because the stems start getting a little bit woody, because most peas are going to be vines, right? And they got to have some strength to kind of work their way up. So they're starting to already get kind of woody, which it isn't so tasty. But if I I'll just chop them up fine, coarsely, put them in a stir fry, and it'll, I've been wanting to eat those, but I said, no, I'm going to leave them all. Now, something else, and these, by the way, so these have holes in the bottom that you see too, right? So when I transport them, the one on the bottom doesn't have any holes. So that way it's not going to leak and make a big mess. But the one on top that had the holes, and actually what I did, I can see the water in here, but I actually put rocks in the bottom. Well, the rocks have all moved, but I sort of spread them out evenly. So it wouldn't, just be sitting in the water, but it'd be kind of lifted up above the water a little bit because of these rocks. But I just brought these a couple days ago and they've been sitting in the Arboretum nursery. So let's see, these are red stems. So these I planted a week ago, yesterday, right? These are only 7, 8 days old. And these are red stems. So they haven't really grown too much. And the folks that are here, they can actually kind of take a look. These are the cotyledons. And then these, the ones that are 5 weeks old, you'll see kind of a radish leaf in it, and you can take a look at it afterward. So they're all ready to harvest. And then my this daikon radish, okay, this is last January 1st, and this is a week ago. So these are just really slow growing. And I don't know, are they slow growing? Are my seeds old? I've got a lot of questions about these daikon because it's one of my favorite garnishes or favorite flavors to put in my cooking. So I want to get some fresh daikon seeds and give it another try and then just see what's going on, because the other radish seeds just grow fantastically. These are the red stem. They're both radishes, same species, but one's really lush and one isn't. So I'm not sure what's happening. Yeah. Okay. I think that's about it. We'll finish up the Zoom, and then folks that are here. Francesca, you had a couple things to say?
Yeah. A few things. Thank you so much for coming. And my favorite was the kitty fry. I'm going to try it. I don't have cats, but I have dogs. I want to see what the dogs will do.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for coming. You have questions, please send them at info@sanmatoearboretum.org. And our next seminar is going to be on March 3rd, the urban forest, the perception, misconceptions, and new understanding. Children are welcome as long as there's an adult present. So thank you so much. And thank you, Carolyn.
Pleasure.
And,
Thank you, Janet.
evaluation, please fill out the evaluation form.
Please fill in the evaluation forms, be really
You'll get
helpful.
it, you'll get it with your recording as well.
People
So if
on,
you'd rather do it online, but please complete the evaluation.
thank you.
Thanks again.